As Minli and Dragon followed Da'afu up the harsh landscape, the wind blew wildly. But traveling was not difficult. Dragon carried them over any large cracks or openings. Minli had forgotten how enjoyable it was to travel with him, and Da'afu, laughing with pure delight as they rode Dragon, looked like two ripe hawthorn berries. Their merriment and the brilliant red color of their clothes and of Dragon himself seemed to warm the cold landscape. It was only when Minli's hands poked out of her sleeves into the icy air that she realized how cold it really was. "It's not much further," Afu said to them after they had walked some distance. "We should be able to see Never-Ending Mountain soon." "You've never seen the Old Man of the Moon, though?" Minli asked. "Has anyone?" Da'afu shook their heads. "No one has ever seen him," Da'afu said. "No one in the history of our family or village. Though we do know he is the one who moved our ancestors here," Afu said. "The Old Man of the Moon brought your ancestors here?" Minli asked. "How?" The story of Da'afu's ancestors. Even though our ancestors did their best to please the magistrate, they were not able to make him happy. One day, a neighbor rushed to our ancestor's home, his horse panting from running. "I have just returned from the city," the neighbor gasped. "I rushed all the way here to warn you. The magistrate is convinced the answer you sent him was a trick, and you are keeping the real secret from him. He's coming here to punish you. He plans to destroy your home and family. Run away while you can. There's not much time. His soldiers will be here tomorrow." Our ancestors cried with fear. The large family, the many sons and daughters, aunts and uncles, and children and grandchildren, could not help being scared. But Yeye, the great-grandfather and head of the family, raised his hand for attention. "It looks as if misfortune is coming," he said, "and there's nothing we can do. We will not run. The soldiers would easily find us, and the magistrate would be even more brutal. And I do not want to spend our last moments together in panicked flight." Yeye looked at the bright blue sky and sun shining on the mountain beyond their home. It was hard to imagine the coming trouble. "Little ones," he said to the children, "go fetch your favorite kites." Then Yeye turned to the adults. "Sons and daughters," he said, "prepare the finest picnic you can with enough food and tea for all. We will not waste this time we have together. We will spend it as we always have, in happiness." The family nodded at Yeye's wise words. Quickly they rushed to do as he asked. They brewed large pots of their best chrysanthemum tea and filled special baskets with golden cakes and custard tarts, boiled chickens, crispy pork, fluffy steamed buns, and tea-stained eggs. And their brilliant kites in the shapes of bugs and butterflies were dragged out of storage and into the sun. Yeye smiled at his family as they finished their tasks. He carried his favorite books of poetry, stories, and songs in a bag. "Come," he said, "let us climb the mountain." So together, with the tree leaves waving farewell, the family made their way up the mountain. They climbed high so the kites could fly without the trees getting in the way. When there was nothing between them and the sky, they stopped. And they had a delightful time. The children laughed as their kites soared in the wind. The women smiled as they sipped the tea, and the men happily ate the delicious treats. Yeye recited poetry that made the women sigh, told stories that made the men gasp, and sang songs that made all the children join in. But all too soon the day was ending. The moon was already rising in the sky when the children were told to wind the strings of their kites. "Why bring the kites down?" an older boy asked. "This will be the last time we will be able to play with them." "Yes," a girl said, "let them fly for as long as they can." So instead of bringing the kites in, they cut the strings. As the kites were freed, a strong gust of wind burst from the sky. One by one, the butterflies and dragons disappeared as if flying home to the moon. As the kites vanished from sight, there was a sad sigh. No one spoke, but they all wished for an escape from tomorrow's tragedy. Quietly, the family packed their belongings and began to climb down the mountain. They walked a long time, so long that the moon rose overhead and they began to shiver with cold. "Are we lost?" a child asked. "This does not look like the way home." "That's impossible," his mother told him. "How can we be lost? There's no other direction than down." "But the boy is right," Yeye said. "Look at the rock before us. We've climbed this mountain many times, yet I've never seen this rock or any rock of this type before." "And there are no trees," the young girl said. "Always there were trees below us, and now there is just more rock." "It's colder, too," another said. "It is much too cold for an early autumn night." "What has happened?" a woman asked. "I think," Yeye said slowly, "we are no longer on our mountain. Somehow we are on a different one." "How is that possible?" a man asked. "And why?" Before Yeye could open his mouth to reply, one of the children shouted. "Home!" she cried. "Our home is right there!" And it was their home. The dark red gate doors were wide open, allowing them to see light shining from the windows of their houses. Their chickens squawked a greeting, and their dogs jumped through the gate with cheerful barks. Our ancestors couldn't believe it. Dirty pots and pans that they had left in the morning were still in the wash basin. Mixed up shoes and hanging laundry were exactly where they were before. Even the book that Yeye had left was open on the same page. Yeye walked from room to room and house to house with the family following like a parade. Finally, he found a slip of bright silk stuck in the hinges of the gate doors. He turned around to look at the family crowding around him. "It is a miracle," he said to them. "We've been moved here, beyond the magistrate's reach. We are saved." The family cheered, but could not help asking, "How? Who did this?" Yeye looked at the empty land around him and the dark blue sky with the moon above, and then at the thin strip of silk in his hands. "This silk is from one of the children's kites. The kites brought our wishes up to the old man of the moon, and he must have decided that our destinies lay here," Yeye said, and he motioned upward, "for there is only one other here with us tonight. It is only us and the moon." "And your family has been here ever since?" Dragon asked. Both children nodded. "For over 100 years our family has lived on the mountain, and we keep growing. Sometimes we travel down the mountain, sometimes people come to us. Anyone who visits is welcome to call our place home." "So," Minli began, but her words died away as Dafu pointed toward the horizon. Minli and Dragon followed his hand and finally saw what could only be Neverending Mountain, home of the Old Man of the Moon.